This episode brought to you by the Gold Medal Wine Club. A wine club subscription makes an impressive gift for all the wine lovers on your list. You will be the hero with a subscription to the Gold Medal Wine Club, featuring hand-picked selections that please the beginning wine enthusiast to the most discriminating connoisseur. Visit www.goldmedalwine.com to join or send a tasteful gift. Use promo code PAULK, that is P-A-U-L-K, to receive 10% off your first order. Cheers.
Carson, Leno, Fallon. Now, it's Wine Talks with Paul K.
Hey, welcome to Wine Talks with Paul K. And we are in studio today, about to have a conversation with Haik Khachatryan.
Yeah.
Introductions in just a second. Hey, Wine Talks had just released a conversation with Doug Frost. Doug Frost, one of the most unique people in our industry, having one of three people in the world that has a Master of Wine and is a Master Somm, which is about 21 years of academic study to get. The only problem I had with the conversation was he decided to start his own winery. So try to figure that one out after knowing what he knew. Hey, have a listen on Google Play, Apple, wherever you hang out for your podcasting. Please subscribe, and if you got something nice to say it. If you don't say anything at all. I appreciate the conversation, but welcome to the show, Haik. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Paul. It's a pleasure.
So we were talking off camera, Khachatryan, and I go, wow, Khachatryan, that sounds like, the guy that wrote Flight of the Bumblebee. And you said, yes, that's actually accurate.
That's right.
He's your relative?
He's a relative, yes. Haik Khachatryan is a relative of on my father's side, which was one of the main reasons my parents were able to come to America.
Because of him?
Because of him, because of the name. Back in when it was USA and Soviet Union were the biggest enemies, and no one even thought about coming to America.
Right. But when was that?
This was like in early 1980s.
Wow.
83. Mm-hmm. So they had that opportunity. So my grandmother, my dad's mom, was the first one. She came to Worcester, Mass.
Right. There's a lot of Armenians in Worcester, Mass.
A lot of Armenian churches, everything. So she saw, okay, there's a community here. There's churches. She scoped it out and said, you guys come.
Wow.
And that's when my mom, I wasn't born. Mom, dad, and my brother, Arson, moved.
So we're and Arson's here today. Welcome to the studio. You got into wine. We'll talk about that. Obviously, this is a wine show, but does anybody else have music capabilities in your family? Did you get any of it?
My dad is a hell of a singer.
Is he really?
He never really went after that.
Yeah.
But like his voice, the artistic is definitely in the family,
right,
and I do the art with wine and creative stuff, and I think the art, it's in our mind, it's the way we see things and envision it. And I think that has a lot to do with that.
Actually, there's a painting, which you didn't see when you came in here, but there's an Armenian artist, and my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law have a gallery in Glendale of all Armenian artists, and it's actually, during COVID, it was difficult, but there's been some traction there. And it's amazing because of post-1991 and the expression, Armenians' expressionism, so to speak, has become very popular, and it's actually, they're doing pretty well, having the artistry in Armenia is pretty incredible.
Even since our history dating back as long as it has, we do some amazing stuff. It just needs to get out there,
Right. Well, I think that's generally the situation with Armenians, is getting it out there.
Getting it out there, correct.
So speaking of artistry and speaking of doing things for a long time, and I got to visit Adani Cave, Adani 1, last time we were there a few months ago, and see the 6,000-year-old intact winery with shoes to boot.
That's right.
Wine's been in our history for a long time, and I had this thought process about it, which is you like to divide wine into two worlds, right? They kind of say old world, new world. And you can say old world is either a style, which is sort of that earthy, terroir-driven style, and new world is, America, Australia, South America, and a brighter, fruitier, more forward style. But it's also a historical designation, the old world. And so Armenia has this weird sort of irony about it because, and I've been actually trying to figure this out a little bit, but it's old world because they've been making wine for over 6,000 years there. You think we learned something, but then it stalled during the Soviet occupation, I guess. and now we're back again, and you're into it.
Well, there's actually a new category now. There's old world, new world, but Armenia and that area, it's actually ancient world wine.
Oh, really? Ancient. That's
ancient
a good term.
world wine.
Yeah.
That's the new category. And we're on the forefront of that, and our winery and our vineyards are 4 miles away from the Areni Cave.
Oh, right there. Right? We went right by it, maybe.
We're right there, brother.
So this is near, and we're going to go off topic a little bit, but this is where Azerbaijan is. This is where the war was. What is the current, not political environment. I don't want to talk politics, but what is the current sort of social environment down there with this going on? Is it active?
Everybody's getting ready. They're even where our winery is, there's a lot of they're doing trainings and stuff. They're doing trainings to the locals. They're arming locals.
Really?
They're arming the locals.
Wow.
And doing target practice. It was a joke a couple of years ago. People weren't taking serious.
Yeah.
But now the stuff that's going on now, all my friends over there, winemakers, they're strapped up to a T,
Wow,
and every day
that's
they got to get ready, dude. Yeah.
That's
you never know.
scary.
There's a saying, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting.
Okay. So we got to be warriors in a garden.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
The idea of war, I'm going to send you my sizzle reel. I was testing my ability to do voiceovers, and I had interviewed Ganem Bagdasaryan and the Kapralian family who lost the wineries in the first war.
Yeah.
And I started to think, what is this about war and wine that's so interesting? And it turns out there's all kinds of subject matter on it, particularly the Nazis and in France when they occupied France. But Ganem lost everything. He lost his bottles, his corks, his winery, his vineyard. And in fact, as the Germans did, or the Prussians did in World War I, hopefully this doesn't happen here, but there are some vineyards in France they still can't plant because of the chemicals used during the warfare. And I hate to see that happen to this ancient world all over again, because here we are getting some traction, and now
there's powers that just want to take our history, man.
Yeah.
They want to take our history. They want to take everything that's written in the soil.
So why did you go down there?
Because of that, because I just don't want it to be lost.
Yeah.
So I started all this and started investing heavily when the war popped off in 2020. And I was like, I'm not just going to stand around. I'm not going to just donate when shit hits the fan, but I want to go and establish businesses. I want to put the money in the land, and I want to bring back quality Armenian wine because we're the first ones who've done it. Not only is the winery...
why wine? Why are you bringing in apricots or pomegranate juice? Or where did the wine come from?
Well, being in the, we've always been in service. We've always been in hospitality, restaurant. And
oh, you did.
So we've been in that, and also my mom she did the importing, and doing brands when I was like 18 years old.
Really? Wow.
So she did that, and I would help her with that.
What was she branding? What was she bringing?
She branding in like my brother and mom's. That little pomegranate bottle that there is with the kernels, bro. My brother created that.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously. But again, we didn't really understand business. We never patented all that stuff.
There's probably one around here somewhere,
probably
actually.
one around there. So all those little cool shapes and stuff, bro, we did that.
Wow.
Always been doing creative stuff. But, never fully committing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, now I'm just trying to bring it all back together. That company has dissolved, but now I'm just kind of like reigniting it, taking all of the roots that we have there, some of the land that we have there, just reigniting and doing it on another level,
So wine is an interesting, part of our history that my dad got me into the industry. And I don't know that he was even aware of what the wine industry in Armenia, well, it was lousy. We know that much.
Yeah.
Even in 2007, when I went the time before this last trip, it was unpalatable.
Right.
And now things like what you're bringing in, which are gorgeous wines, are starting to raise eyebrows in the wine world. But it's still tough. I mean, brand building in any business is tough, and now wine.
And like how you were saying, when, the Soviet Union took over, the biggest, export was Russia. There it was government owned.
Right.
So they were making sweet junk that was high in alcohol and high in sugar and liquor.
Right,
Because that's what
exactly.
the Russians were buying.
That's
they just
what they
want to
wanted.
they're not sophisticated.
No.
So they were drinking trash.
Are they a market for your current wines?
No, our main market is focused in America,
It's
USA.
all American.
Yep, all USA. And so we, trying to get away from that stigma of like fruit wines, a lot of sugar-based wines, and just doing it the natural style. All our wines are all organic, all natural,
Really?
hand-picked, hand-harvested. Like, we don't, no junk, no preservatives, and the people can taste that.
Yeah, it's important.
You
I think.
taste it.
These days, it's a movement. It's more than a movement. Here's the part that I have a problem with it in general. For one, in America, there's no term for natural wine. It doesn't exist in the FDA.
Yeah.
There's not even a term for natural food.
Right.
The idea for the FDA is, well, as long as there's nothing in there that wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. So that's all they have in the books. But it seems to me, and this is what kind of interesting that you're doing it this way, because it always was natural, or it was always less intervention. There was always no pesticides for all of time until the Industrial Revolution, and then we started with pesticides, and now we're going, hey, look how proud we are of going back to the way it was in the first place, and that's what Armenia always was, right? They always did this. So where are these vineyards from? How'd you come across these vineyards? And it still takes a lot of energy and time and passion to do this. Where did that come from?
It came from, just the belief that it could be done, and understanding the quality of Armenian wine. And building relationships, building the relationships and working with the best winemakers in Armenia.
Right.
And me, myself, being in the wine bar business, we'll talk about that later, but pretty much been in restaurant and wine bars since I was freaking 8 years old.
Oh, okay.
And then we started, I started my first wine bar, 750 square feet location in Myrtle Beach. Grew it to 4 locations in 5 years in the Redneck Riviera. If I can do it in the Redneck Riviera, I can do it anywhere, pretty much.
What is the Redneck Riviera?
Well, it's in South Carolina.
Oh,
so
okay.
Basically, it's the Redneck Riviera is
That's
Myrtle
funny.
Beach. Yeah. It's like a 30-mile stretch.
First time I've heard the term. It was great.
30-mile stretch. It's a big tourist area.
Yeah.
And it's the country. People are used to drinking muscadine wine.
Yes.
And we were introducing Armenian wine, Moldovan wine, Ukrainian wine.
Yeah.
But it was always not our brands. Okay, so we're making everyone else rich. One of my Italian winemaker friends, bro, we sold millions of dollars worth of his wine. And he's just so happy. We literally launched his whole brand in South Carolina and sold. We're the number one sellers. Italian made. And we're like, okay. I'm like, bro, we're making everyone else rich. All right, let's go invest in our country. Let's make our own wine. And that's where the thought came, in 2020, when the shit hit the fan, everyone was scared to move a muscle. That's where we went all in.
Wow.
Invested the most.
That takes some guts.
It takes guts.
I was using another word, but that takes some guts.
And we're like, we're doing this. Now's the best time, The biggest companies are forged in the toughest times in the world.
It's funny you say Italian wine. You're pouring your Italian friend, because I did a podcast with the Italian. She calls herself the Italian wine girl. But anyway,
I saw that actually. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So when we were supposed to be in Armenia 3 weeks ago, mid-October, as part of our tour, but they canceled my wife's conference, and all the crews at CivilNet that were going to help me finish some podcasts and do some videotaping were on the war, so it got canceled. But I was going to visit a winery owned by an Italian Tuscan. So he's got a winery in Tuscany, little boutique winery in Tuscany. We didn't get to visit when we were there. And I wanted to sit and ask him the same question I'm asking you, which is like, why did you do this? You're not even connected to Armenia. And there's something about the soil, the history, that now you're talking about the ancient, wine district, the wine category.
Yes.
Maybe is what the attraction is. So, what have you found then bringing these, first of all, how many vintages have you brought to America, and what's the reception like?
So we've created and brought 10 vintages, and
Really?
I believe,
Wow.
yeah, I believe that Armenia has the best soil.
Mm-hmm.
We have, the sun is the sun, but the way our mountains are, the way our fresh water is, and the way that people have passion for their land, it all translates into the grapes. Good grapes make a good wine, right?
You can't make good wine from bad grapes. You can't make bad wine from good grapes. You can't make bad wine from good grapes. We all know this. Right?
So I believe that Armenia has the best grapes. We have the best fruit. We're known for all of our fruits. So what is grape any difference? So I just I ran with that, and I wholeheartedly believe we have the best fruit, we have some of the best farmers, and with a little bit of encouragement, with a little bit of structure and organization, I believe we can make this into a huge brand. And the people have been loving the wine because we're educating. Wine is about education. Everybody's educating. You go to Napa, everyone's educating about Napa and their family. And they came from Italy and they came from France. But no one knows about Armenia.
It's the story.
It's all the story. And it's a true story.
Yeah.
So the story sells. And we're educating people about the world's oldest winery. We're educating people about the history.
Mm-hmm.
We're educating people about how we, not only is the winery 6,200 years old, but scientists are saying that, okay, in order to even have the winery, you have to be making wine at least 1,500 years to get to that technology to be able to have the winery. So, bro, it's rewriting the history books.
It's amazing.
So that's what we're educating people. And they're tasting it. They're loving it. I mean, our tastes are everything from like Sauvignon Blancs, similar to, but all of our wines are Armenian varietals right now.
I noticed in yours, but Alagote, but probably there. I have a book. I have an ancient Armenian wine book written by some academic guys. It's got about 160 varietals in it, pictures.
So all these, the Adeni Noir, the Voskehat, these are non-GMO grapes.
Right.
I'm a big health nut.
Yeah.
I'm organic, natural.
Right.
And dude, our wines is what the ancients were drinking 8,000, 10,000 years ago. That's what we're drinking right now. And it's been proven that the grapes are very resilient. The genetic composition is exactly the same. What they found in the vats in the winery,
Mm-hmm.
They did the mass spectrometry with all the scientists, and they saw that there's the molecule, the Maldivan, which is like gives the color.
Right.
It's only found in pomegranate and grape skin, but in order to ferment, they realized this is fermented stuff, so it has to be grape.
Right.
It was grapes being made here. And they did the genetics testing, and it's the exact same genetic profile makeup. Nothing has changed. It's a resilient grape, and it's been proven the more you drink it, you actually get smart. You actually get intelligent by drinking this freaking wine.
Yeah, I've been feeling smarter lately.
Because there's history to it. I mean, it's information.
Yeah.
It's all energy and information, and it goes through the grape.
There's a reason why people go on vacation and they come back and they bring the wines back and they go, it doesn't taste the same because you're not experiencing it. Wine is experiential, right? It's all about that, who you're with, when you're with. And the wine has to be properly made to express all that. In fact, I had this conversation with somebody, a very high level Bordeaux maker. And I said, do you wrestle with presenting to the public the terroir of that year, because that's the most important part of any wine, versus crafting a wine around the brand profile. Now, most of the wines on the shelf, like in this picture of my dad's wine shop, are formula wines. You go to the markets in Florida, you go to the markets in California, and the shelves are the same.
Yeah,
it's the same crap, right? It's sugared up bull crap, and it's what sells. Let's just kind of work with that. You're a retailer, you're a marketeer. We want to sell some stuff. And so there's this formula-based winemaking, which is like, I'm going to have the same Cabernet every time I buy it, and it's going to taste the same, and I buy it because of that.
Right.
But then you've got these terroir-driven wines like yours and 10 vintages into it, and they're going to be different a little bit different. You're going to have one winemaker who's sort of got his or her hand in it, but you said it, the terroir drives it in Armenia.
It does. And that's what's unique.
This is what leads to this question. Armenians are stubborn people. We know this already, right?
Yeah.
And particularly if in 1991, when freedom came and all the Soviet era winemakers were making the same junk, and in comes this group like you and others, Haik Khachatryan of the world and the Yakubian brothers and all those other guys, Karas and Ernakian and all that, blah, 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 goes on and on. Is there conflict there, or is there pushback on, or is everybody starting to realize, wait, we really have something here that could be world class, and let's get on the same page?
I believe they're all on the same page. They all support each other. That's what made I thought it was going to be a lot more difficult, but I just see that there's a big camaraderie and everyone is there to help, because they want to get their name out. They want to get their products out. And whether it has my brand on it, what's important, and they realize it says made in Armenia.
Right.
So I've seen nothing but help.
You're saying on the public-facing part of this, 10 vintages into it, people are raising an eyebrow to these wines when you pour them.
They are. They are. They're loving the story. They're loving the taste because, again, it's I create my wines. I have a say because I've been in this business for so long, and I know the American palate very well.
That's the key.
That's the key. I know a lot better than my Armenian friends.
Yeah.
So I know the American palate. So when I go, they listen to me because America is the number one wine consumer in the world right now. They're buying the most stuff.
Everybody says that.
Yeah. And it's becoming more, the millennials, the younger age. So I know, being, that myself, I know what people want. So that's how we design our wines.
It's a slow industry. You only get one chance a year, right? So you don't get to craft it. And even Michel Roland, and I've said this before on the show, but since we're talking about Armenia, had told Juliana at Ernakian's place, look, you got 100 years now to figure out what's going to grow here and what's not. And that'll lead to a different part of this conversation. So you have had to craft in 10 years a palatable wine that represents what you're trying to do, but also represents the people that you're selling to. And you have to tell the story. Is it gone faster, slower, what you expected? Headwinds that you met that you didn't expect? Any pop up that you're like, well, I didn't expect this to happen?
There's been a lot. It's been a lot of
kind of a loaded question,
hiccups.
really.
Yeah, that's what it is. So, there's going to be adversity. There's going to be challenges and everything. As long as you're a good problem solver and you love solving problems, it's not an issue. And we control everything from A to Z, which really makes it a lot easier. But the problems we had was, during COVID, the exportation, the shipping out the wines and transportation was a mess. But we did it. We did it anyway. And, my guys in Armenia were working flawlessly. We had some problems, doing your own brand it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. I mean, everything you got to get so many people on board. There's so many, T's you got to cross. As you know, with licensing, the TTB, the corks,
colas,
the cola waivers, the labeling, everything. And when you're starting from scratch, you got to get all these people on board. So I would say the biggest thing was like the branding in itself.
Yeah.
How long it took to get the winery or the branders to, I created the design, but, with them helping and putting everything together, and then we have to print out these. I'm working with printers in Spain and cork makers in Italy and France and all types of stuff, man. I'm literally working with the whole world and getting everything on board. It took some years.
I suppose that's an interesting problem because the early stuff that came to America after 1991, packaging was horrible. I think I received cognac or brandy with styrofoam plugs rather than cork.
Right.
The glass test bottles, who knows what the quality control is. I don't think the Soviets really cared that much. And so that's changed dramatically, but I can't imagine the infrastructure changing that rapidly. In other words, obviously the glass was probably inferior, the corks were inferior, the bottling lines were clean. I remember in 2007 on our way to Stepanakert, one of those places, and we stopped at a winery, and I'm the wine guy, right? Hey, the wine guy's on the volume.
Yeah.
And you have to tell the guy, this is really good. It was literally unpalatable. But then the concrete fermentation tanks were puttied with black, like Henry's, roof repair.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you can taste this. This is terrible. So that evolution is slow and has headwinds. And the supply chain, like you said during COVID, was a mess. Let's take a break to hear from our sponsor, Total Wine and More. Where can you find the best gifts at great low prices that everyone will love? At Total Wine and More, of course. With so many great bottles to choose from, find something for everyone on your list, whether it's a Cabernet for sis, sparkling wine for a coworker, or single barrel bourbon for dad. If you need any help, just ask one of our friendly guides for advice. With the lowest prices in over 30 years, you'll always find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Spirits not sold in Virginia or North Carolina. Drink responsibly. Be 21. You now created this main brand called Open Container, which is a great name. I love it.
Thank you.
You have others?
Yeah, Haik wine, which is my own personal brand.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have the Open Container, and then I have a Haik wine.
How about the Flight of the Bumblebee wine? Or
Yeah. And it has the logo of Haik, the founder of Armenia,
Yes.
the statue that's Massive.
Yep.
So I put that logo on there, and that one's my top of the line. The best lot, hand selected, the best grapes. We don't compromise on that one. Everything is top tier. And even my Open Container brand, like you were saying, a lot of those materials were so cheap because people didn't have the money. I mean, you couldn't even work with Italy and France and all this. It was like, whatever Russia is going to supply or whatever junk we can make, we're going to use that. But now, my corks from Italy, my packaging from Europe. So everything's top tier. We spared no expense to making everything the best that we could. My wines my corks are top tier corks, and my wines can store in the cellar, my reds, 20, 30 years plus.
Wow. I'd like to, I wonder if they've done any, I frankly, personally, I prefer Sirani as the grape of structure.
Yes.
And we'll talk about those nuances in a minute, but we're going to get into the marketing of this as well. But the headwinds to, for instance, even here in America during COVID, my last thing I bottled, I ordered cork finish, high shoulder claret bottles, dead leaf green. And I got, the other green, and I got a screw cap.
Right.
I didn't have a choice. I mean, and this is America. It wasn't around. I had to take what I got. So I ended up with a screw cap Cabernet when I didn't really want it, but I needed the wine, so I did it. And I can't imagine in a country like Armenia, which the infrastructure, the supply chain was such a mess. So you started bringing this in 10 years ago. You're pouring it off. Where are you pouring this now?
Actually started bringing it in since it literally just came in. I've been working on it for many years.
Oh, okay.
And I got your question confused.
Yes.
So it's a newer wine. It literally just came in.
It landed here. Just
landed here this year.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Landed this
year.
But the vintages we've been working on, and actually years, and the barrel aging.
Yes, which takes time, right?
Exactly.
This is an expensive proposition for the listeners that don't know. Unless you have what they call I forgot the term now, but Riesling, for instance, is you ferment it. You pick it in September, October, you ferment it the next few weeks, and you bottle it a few weeks after that. And so you can start making money on a wine if you're not putting it in oak and aging it for 18 months. But man, you tie up your whole crop's worth of money in that
for years,
besides the barrel costs. There's a huge capital outlay without any revenue stream coming from it, unless you do grapes that are prone to that. But so this is an expensive proposition to do, and now you're doing it. So where are you pouring this now?
Yeah, so we're pouring this in out of our brand business. It's called Open Container.
Mm. As a wholesaler, as a supplier,
as a
retailer.
Retail. Yeah, it's Open Container. It's the world's first shipping container wine bar and franchise. So we take shipping containers and we fabricate the whole thing from scratch. And we make them into these really cool, fun, approachable, and trendy bars.
Like a 40-foot container,
like
a 55,
20 foot,
a 20 foot,
20 foot.
How wide are those things? 8 feet,
8.5.
So a 20 foot by 8 foot wine bar.
Yeah, and we're just cranking out, pouring the profits through.
So you're buying. What are you buying? Non-seaworthy containers now because they've been idle, or what's that market? How do you find these things?
I'll tell you a little story. I actually built my newest container that it's like 2 miles from Disney World. Okay, in Orlando.
Right in Orlando.
I'm right in Orlando. I'm a couple miles from downtown Disney and Disney World. So that container I built in Armenia. Okay.
Really?
I built that in Armenia too. Yeah, all in 2020. I started.
They use real steel over there in Armenia.
Yeah, real steel. Yeah. Well, it was a Russian container.
Yeah.
And dude, I literally we found this on through a friend of mine.
Yeah.
like on the side of the road, in near Lake Sevan.
Really?
Yeah, high elevation in Lake Sevan. But this was like perfect condition container, but it was like 18 years old container. Unbelievable, right? And we just found this container because it was just hard to find back then. Bro, we took a drive. I went with my buddy who has a factory who, I wanted to build this in China at first. But then now with all this stuff happening in China, I'm like, and I'm in Armenia, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to build it here. But I took the risk. It took us like 6 months to build this thing. So we find this container in Armenia on like the side of the road that probably no one even owned. But, you know, since I'm there, I'm like, I'm going to buy this.
Probably.
Yeah. And then some guy's like, oh, this is my container. I'm like, all right, bro, here's some money. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to pick this thing up. So it cost me like $1,500.
Yeah.
I buy this container. I have it picked up and taken to Yerevan for like another $500. And we start fabricating it. My guys like get it all, you know, every like little bit of rust, light rust. They, you know, they polish it up and it looks brand new.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so you're talking about when you fabricated in Armenia, for the listeners, you're putting in the fixtures to make these wine bars?
We're cutting all the openings for it.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
We're cutting all the openings for the doors because we're open container.
Right.
Right? So we do a little play on the words.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yeah,
we all know this.
Yeah, right? So it's a it's a container, literally a steel container, and we open it up. And we sell alcohol out of it. So it's open container. So basically we do 5 cuts, all the shocks, all the doors. We put a bar in there.
Mm-hmm.
I put this sick wall in there with like the finest stone where it's like all the slushy. We have like these slushy machines. Well, we serve like frozen wine too, and it's been a hit.
Yeah, big popular stuff.
You know, we cut the little openings for that. I put a walk-in cooler in there, and we put all the wine lights, everything. We fabricate it straight up. I put a bar with the Artsakh walnut wood, literally. I got this walnut wood from Artsakh, which is probably the last bit of wood you can probably even get from there.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
You know, and we actually end up saving part of this wood because when the war happened, they were like bombing this area and all the forests were burning down. And my guys were like, man, we got this walnut wood over there. What are we going to do? I'm like, bro, let's get it. Let's get it. So I got about like 4 wine bars worth of it, you know?
Crazy.
So our next franchisee who gets on board, whatever, they're going to get this unique
still making
wood.
them in Armenia?
I have a couple builders now. So I have Armenian one, and I got one in like Miami, one in Atlanta.
Okay.
So just so everyone, you know, as we grow, there's no bottlenecking, you know, so we can crank it up in America or in Armenia, no problem.
But there must be, well, I have 2 containers in the parking lot you just saw.
Yeah.
They're like 50 footers. Oh, they're huge.
Probably 40.
I think I paid like, I don't know, maybe I paid $1,200 for them, maybe.
Yeah.
But fortunately I had a friend who had a truck, a crane they were actually placed here full. Okay. They're full of my crap. My wife been dying for me to get rid of this stuff, but I will not get rid of it. Yeah. And so we cranked them in here. But I mean, America, there must be dime a dozen to find 20-foot containers.
There was a point where they were scarce, but now, you know, you can get a one-time use container for like, now it's like $3,000.
Yeah. Okay.
But a lot of people, bro, they're charging an arm and a leg. For people who don't understand the business, they're charging $12,000 for one of those.
Well, there is this sort of, I think I just read an article about a condominium project where they're taking parking structures, bringing containers into them and converting them into living domiciles. And they don't have to do anything to the structure of the parking structure. They don't have to build it out. They just build out the inside of a container. So I guess the recycling of these for repurposing them is quite popular.
The repurposing is very popular.
And so now you build this out and somebody said, I mean, how does anybody find out that you have this available to them and some nut wants to get into the wine business?
Yeah, right.
And I say it tongue in cheek because we're all in it. But we're in it for a reason because it's great. But they want to open a wine bar in, let's say, Atlanta, and they contact you and they order this container. What happens next for them? They're a franchisee, a legal franchisee of yours?
Yes. So we have all of our FDD documents, and again, doing this our whole life, we want to help people. You know, we want to help create the freedoms that we enjoy every day. And people who love wine, like myself, I love service. I love wine. I love helping people, making connections. And I also like making a shit ton of money doing it.
Right. Well,
so that's where
certain
this
Armenianism in that.
yeah. So it's like, it's fun. It's fun. You're meeting people from all over the world, and people who have that similar passion, who are in hospitality, that, they're in the corporate world, but they want to be their own boss.
Yep.
They want to do it for themselves and get rewarded for the time they put in. That's what we help them do, and it's a turnkey operation. Everything from the licenses to the leases, everything.
Let's role play. Hey, Haik, this is Paul over here in Arcadia, Monrovia, California. I heard about this container thing. I think there's a classic location here at 320 West Chestnut in Monrovia to put one of these container tasting rooms. Is it a retail store too?
It is. Okay. Yeah, it's a retail store.
All right, so I want to do that.
Wine club.
What do you ask me next?
So I'm like, Paul,
are you crazy?
Are you crazy? Are you nuts? If you're nuts, let's do it. Let's do it. Because if you're not nuts and you're like rational, we don't want to work with you. We don't want to work with you, because you got to be crazy. But you have to have a passion for serving. Okay. I would ask, Paul, have you ever owned a business before? Are you an entrepreneur?
Yep.
Are you willing to take a risk? Because there's risk and no risk, no reward.
Right.
Have you ever been in the restaurant business? Have you, do you want to be an owner operator? Would you want to be an owner operator, or, maybe you have family running it?
Yeah. Good questions.
Yeah.
Those are good questions.
Yeah. What county are you in? How are the alcohol laws? But that's something we will research.
You'll figure that out.
We figured out. But still, we asked, like, hey, is there, give me the address. And then we'll look to see, okay, is there any restaurants around there serving beer and wine? Yeah. And if there is, that means it's a no-brainer. It could be done. Are you 200 feet away from a school or a church?
That's the ABC rules. So let's stall on the ABC rules for a second. You, as a franchisee, like if I want to open a nothing but cakes, I have to sign a contract, go through all this stuff, and obviously the regulations are going to be less for cake than it is for alcohol. But we found a location, and you provide the support to help me get my license from the ABC, and for the listeners, there's basically two types there's many, many licenses in California now, but the primary licenses for selling alcohol are on-premise or off-premise. Am I going to open it and pour it for somebody, or am I just going to let you take a closed bottle away from here? And then you divide that into wine and beer, or wine, beer, and distilled spirits. Those are the four different sort of emaciations of this, right? So what do you primarily get? Do you get an on-premise able to pour wine and beer license for these people?
Yes, on premise, because open container is about connecting the world, connecting the community. So it's a place you can come that's super laid back, and we want people to come and enjoy the wine there. Okay, learn the history there.
You teach them how to get this license.
Correct.
Do you have as you're talking, I'm getting this vision of this container sitting in the parking lot, and people are inside. They're not huge. I mean, 8 foot by 20 foot is 160 square feet.
Exactly.
Do they put a canopy over the parking lot and let people sit outside? Can you do that in some states?
You could do that, especially if it's like private property or whatever the landlord agrees to.
Yeah, right.
Our landlords, they love our concept, and literally, I mean, everybody who sees it, they say, I have to drink at that container. I have to drink there. And
there can't be enough storage. I mean, you saw my warehouse here.
You could store a couple of wines in this warehouse.
Well, yeah, we had
just a few.
Had quite a few. It kept me from having to have a cellar at home. Yeah. Now I have to have one. But cases take room. In fact, that leads to a whole different part of our conversation about that. But a stack of 5 cases, it takes some space. Either you're getting a delivery every other day, or you encourage people to have other offsite storage, or the supplier of the wine. Like, okay, now I'm scatterbrained.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Let's say you're going to pour the open container, the white here, the Boscahat blend. How does that get to? If I open today in California, do you have presence in California?
Not yet.
Okay, so let's say I'm in Florida. How do these wines get to as a franchisee?
So with Florida and California and pretty much all over America, there's that 3-tier rule, right? The 3-tier. So we're on the retail side of it, right? Open container is it's a retail.
Yeah, so that's the franchisees are retail.
Serving the public. Mm-hmm. So open container will have a vendor that's a distributor. So in Florida, there's a distribution company, Pyramid Global Inc., which happens to be our family as well. So Pyramid
That's
Global
smart
Inc.
stuff, by the way.
Yeah. So we established that. So I basically distribute to our open containers, all legally, paying taxes for each on the distribution side and everything.
Impossible to get around that.
Yeah. So basically, the Pyramid Global Inc. will distribute to the franchisees.
I see. Okay, so they call,
and the same thing would be in California. You know, we would work with the distributor here, or we would work with you, because it sounds like you have a distribution license.
I have a distributor license.
Okay, you have a distributor license. So I'd be like, Paul, I'm going to distribute this wine. Name a percentage, right? Name a percentage. Make a little something for your time and your license. You know, you've had this. It takes time,
well,
right?
That's appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd be like, hey, we're gonna, I'm opening up 5 franchises here. We're gonna distribute through yours, or I can just open up my own. Right?
Yeah.
Get a license here.
Not hard.
Put it under my brother's name.
Yeah.
And then boom, we just
but everything's landing from Armenia and Florida.
Landing
right
from I ship it out to the port of Miami.
Okay.
But if it's gonna come to California, I'll probably get a container's worth.
Yeah.
Right? I'll put the money up, and then we'll just get it shipped to a port over here in LA, and then pick it up, take it to a warehouse.
What's the turnaround time to make a container tasting room?
2.5 months.
Well, that's not bad.
Nope, 2.5 months. We have it already shipped and delivered on the site.
And are they fabricated the same, or does the franchisee get a chance to chime in on finishes and stuff?
I mean, they're loving the design.
Yeah,
they love the design. It's super unique. So there's not much to change. We like to keep it all the same. Just like you go to McDonald's. Pretty much, it's all. Yeah, right. It's going to be the same.
Feels the same.
Feels the same.
They need to be named open container because they're
they need to be named open container. That's our trademark.
That's the trademark.
That's the bread and butter right there.
Yeah.
And
how many do you have running right now?
We got 2, opening our 3rd one.
Wow.
And franchising the 4th one very, very soon. Wow. We already got the location. We got the lease already ironed out, and the investor. So we're we were talking about off camera about this the mobile wine balance, which was on a soap opera years ago, and I told you the story. But the idea of sort of mobile wine, and I don't mean mobile that it has to be on wheels, but this sort of has that. It's permanent. It has to be permanent, but it feels movable. It feels like Hemingway's. It's a movable feast. It feels like this. It's something unique, and wine is so experiential, right? And so if I'm a consumer, and I have a chance to go out and have a glass of wine before I go to dinner, or maybe even you start serving food at these places, that's gonna be kind of fun. I've got this place. Take my friends. We're gonna go sit with this container. Yeah. How cool is this guy? There's a picture of Haik on the wall. Big giant photograph of him. So. Some Armenian artist paints your photograph, puts it on every. That'd be cool. That's a good idea.
It puts it in everything.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. And so, and like I said, it's such a slow industry to move, and the licensing takes time. Yes. And we talked about this a little bit. Have you had headwinds from licensing? Like, as the local governments, they're very bureaucratic in general, right?
So. That's the beauty of open container. It's we do get them with as a permanent structure. So that's how we're able to get like the 2 COP or the on and off premise licensing. But that's the beauty of you get your licensing using a specific address. Mm-hmm. But just like a case study of one of our units in Orlando. So we're in a big mall, right? And we had a container by Nike. Right, Nike and Under Armour on the right side wing. Wow. Yeah, the right side wing of this mall.
Yeah.
First year, blowing it out the water. It's been busy every year after year. COVID hit, slowed us down a little bit, and then it was like slow to come back up. But then we were like, hey, we want to move this to the center, right? To more of where there's like the more luxury goods and Starbucks. So we literally moved it 300 feet, right? So we moved it from where we were by Nike to Starbucks and Cinnabon. And right now, where our brand new franchise is next to the biggest franchises in the world. So we moved it 300 feet and profits exploded 50%.
That's an incredible story.
You know? And this is like a real life case study, numbers to prove everything.
That's amazing.
By just moving it. What business can you move like that?
Yeah.
You know, you sign a lease,
None.
you're tied in somewhere, you're done.
Well, the mall right here, you drove by coming in here. I remember when Johnny Rockets, the restaurant chain, which was that one was owned by an Armenian guy, had to move to another part of the thing. And I mean, you had to completely deconstruct the restaurant.
Completely.
And move all the
Cost you
equipment,
millions.
redesign the whole thing. And you guys just picked up left. This leads me to...
with a single forklift.
That's
That's
forklift. Nuts.
And then let me talk about the licensing too. So
Yeah.
the licensing, we're having to educate some of these people that are working in the city, you know, because they haven't really, we're like we're like on the frontier of this. But now, since it's such a novel idea and a lot of retail is like kind of dying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And more entertainment venues, like the malls are approaching us now. These big shopping centers and work and live areas are approaching us because we're that spark, right? We're the spark where you can come, have a drink, and shop.
Wow,
Right? It's an
fascinating.
it's a experience.
Yeah.
And that's what people leave with, you know? That's what people leave with.
And
So
it's a cool vibe. Like if you just built a wine bar inside one of the stalls of a mall, not even a stall, but in one of the stores, it may not carry the same.
it might not carry
feeling.
the same novelty and
In fact, it
that
won't
same
carry it.
experience, you know? And that's why, you know, we do the open container, we do shipping container, whole shipping container type of design, but we also do a kiosk, which is like half shipping container, not such a big site where, you know, you don't want to cover up too much of the marketing
Yeah,
and the other
right.
people's stores and
Right,
signage.
yeah, that's true. You have to be
So we
careful
do
of that.
like half container, half more like wood built.
Yeah, right.
You know, but we still stick with like recycled, you know, we're all about recycle and you know, good for the environment, but no issues with licensing whatsoever, really. I think that everyone sees it whenever we go to the local, you know, clerk office or, you know, the city, they love it. They're all on board, you know, and it's the future.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
There's a woman in here. She's a fabulous young girl, and she makes wine from flowers. She's in Oakland, and I had her on the show, and I was so impressed with her drive to do this. And she says, I've said this before on the show, but she goes, I've faced racism. She's a young black girl.
Yeah.
I've sexism. She's a female, and grape supremacy. Because she makes wine from flowers and nobody wants to taste it. And she
Yeah.
goes into a liquor store and they're like, we're not selling wine from flowers. But I always say I was more impressed with, because the wines were actually pretty interesting and good, the fact that she was able to get a container with a 40-footer in a parking lot in Oakland, licensed as a functioning winery, because she ferments in the lab and everything. And here you are doing the same thing with retail, which is just as daunting. You know, you don't have to have a lab necessarily, but let's get into the physical part of this thing a little bit. You know, those things are heavy, right? And can you just plop them anywhere? Or are there footing requirements? Are there some kind of, you know, building code? I mean, to me, you're open container, open Pandora's box. You've got alcohol licensing, you've got structural integrity issues, health permit requirements.
Health department, yep.
Really, because you're pouring and you've got to have.
Because you're pouring, you know, it's food.
Yeah,
anything
it's
you
food.
consume is food, technically.
And that's the other question then too. So, but these things are lining up. You're able to corral these things and make them work. Are you serving food at these places?
We do like tapas. We do light tapas. You know, we'll do, again, our main concept is beverage.
Yeah.
But
they got to have something to eat. You know?
We work with the caterer. You know, we work with the caterer. So as long as people book their wine tasting around 24 hours in advance, then
you can have something.
Yeah, we're able to get like some bomb cheese plates, you know, and we do like a dessert tray too.
Maybe even be somebody in the mall that could do it for you.
Exactly. So our cheese and wine tasting is called the soulmate tasting.
Oh, that's
you know,
nice.
wine and cheese go together.
Right.
And then the dessert one is called the sip and sweets.
Very cute.
Yeah.
Is it only open container wines, or are you vending out other things too, like Italian, your friend?
My friend, I'm working on a Prosecco, because now the trends are, you know, are, especially in Florida, but the trends on sparkling are just through the roof.
Right. You know, it's coming around in California finally.
Yeah. It's the number one growing segment in the world right now, and in America, sparkling wine. So working on a Prosecco with my friend Roberto Bava.
Mm-hmm.
where his family were making wine for the presidents. It was in the White House for many, many years. And soon a champagne. But that's going to be like in the next year and a half.
I have great contacts in the world of champagne, private branded champagne. She lives there now. She grew up there.
Okay.
I used to buy a lot of wine from her, and she moved back. And she's only does private label champagne for the Napa Valley wineries right now. Well, all over the States, but so if you need a contact there, she's really good.
Okay, yeah, I'm open to that.
Yeah,
we want a nice champagne and maybe even a rosé too.
And I had a guy sitting at your chair where you're sitting now, and we were at the Fancy Food Show in Vegas, one of my favorite shows, conventions in the country.
Yeah.
There's no other convention like this. It was in San Francisco for years. Of course, nobody wants to go there anymore. So now it's in Vegas. So it's a little smaller this year, but every booth is something. So you never know. You can start with jelly beans, and the next booth could be yogurt, and there's even sujuk and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so you get an upset stomach by the time you get through the whole damn show. But the big theme this year was non-alcoholic everything. I don't get it. I don't know why you would bother drinking a fake bourbon. That just doesn't make any sense to me. But one guy stopped me, and he hands me a glass of sparkling Prosecco, sparkling wine. It was Prosecco, and it was non-alcoholic rosé. And he goes, taste this. I go, look, man, you're talking to the wrong guy. I'm in the industry. I won't. And I taste it.
Yeah.
It was good enough that I put him on the show because I wanted to find it's some special process. It was from Italy. Have you had a call yet? Has anybody asked you for, because it's very trendy for Gen Z or Gen X or whatever letter we're on.
Right. We've had some people, but again, it's such a small percentage.
It's a small percentage.
Very, very small percentage. And
it's supposed to be hot.
Yeah, it's supposed to be hot, but we're about creating our own trends.
Yeah,
man.
right. So
honestly,
that's okay.
If I was to listen to everybody.
No, you can't. And I refuse to feature them. But though you probably saw some canned wines around here. We did that. I want to actually go back to one thing.
I like the canned wine idea. That we would do. That.
Well, I suppose that would look cool. That's a whole other freaking show, and we're almost on an hour already. But I do want to go back to the food thing because it was very funny. There's a wine bar here in West Covina, and the mayor of this town at the time, I was opening the bar you saw here today, but it was in another location.
Okay.
And he's like, I want you to come see my friend out in West Covina. So I go out there, my wife and I are sitting by ourselves, and it said, Bill's Cheese Platter. That was the name. You have, what was the name of yours?
The Soulmate Cheese Plate.
Yeah, right. So this was called Bill's. So I go, let's order Bill's Cheese Platter. And so this is what not to do.
Okay.
He brings out this plastic, the black plastic with the clear top, puts it on there. It looks like they used an Avery label and put Bill's Cheese Platter. Then inside of it was a sleeve of Ritz crackers.
Oh, man.
And the little cubes that you buy from the market.
Yeah, like the $2
It looked like he
packs.
bought it at the 7-Eleven or something. And I thought to myself, how embarrassing.
Yeah.
I'm at a wine bar.
Right.
And I want to, how hard is it to slice some cheese or cut it up and
Get
put it
some
on
gourmet cheese or something.
Ridiculous,
yeah.
right? So please don't do that.
No.
When I come, I don't want it plastic.
I totally agree. No, I would not show face if we did something like that. But everything is gourmet. Again, we didn't compromise on building our container. We didn't compromise on our wine. That's something I stand very, very strong with, is bringing the best quality products to my customers, and I get that from my father.
So what's next? I mean, how many of these guys, there's a logistical issue here, right? You've got them all over you keep on the Eastern Seaboard, maybe for now, Atlanta, whatever you're doing. But, every time you open a new city, this is going to be a new set of rules, new set of everything.
Right.
So are you sort of going to get your enclave established between where you're at now, or are you actively looking for anybody that wants one anywhere?
Not anywhere, but, having family in California and this being a great market,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a huge market.
Of Armenian wines too, and it's an Armenian-based business, and people are supporting Armenian stuff right now like crazy. This is a huge market, huge, and anyone who will get into this market, I know it's going to be successful. And so California is really big for us, and I'm sure we can get the licensing and all, but just looking for a strong partnership. Someone who's crazy enough, but also likes to take on, something like a new task, something fun, create a little buzz, So I'm looking for strong partnerships in California for sure.
Have you heard of Guinea Fest?
I have. Yes, I have. Yep. And
so a
I
couple
know-
things out of that. And I'm very close to many winemakers in Armenia. Victoria Aslani is a very good friend of mine. Haik Khachatryan is a very good friend of mine. The guys at Voskavaz.
yeah.
So the Guinea Fest, having been in this industry for 35 years and gone to hundreds of wine tastings put on by the biggest retailers or the suppliers in the country, Guinea Fest was really, really well done this last time. Professional, felt like I was at a wine event.
Yep.
A lot of consumers, winemakers from all over Armenia, though, also Armenian winemakers in America
Yes.
that have their own brands. I was really impressed with the management of the product. So if you're really serious, there'd be a must do is
Yeah.
either be there or at least circulate there. Because I was there giving my card out for the podcast, getting people on the podcast and stuff. But
Right.
it is a place where people go to experience Armenian wine. On the flip side of that conversation, many vendors there were saying there's not enough people in LA to drink all the Armenian wines that are coming here already. Like everybody jumped on the bandwagon, bringing stuff in. And I'll say I have my favorites and I have things that I think are really quite excellent
Right.
and quite representative, but I'm a wine geek guy kind of, so I look for things that are different than most people. But
Yes.
But it was an interesting comment that was thematic to many of the importers today in LA saying, we don't have enough outlets to sell all the wine that's coming into LA. And maybe this is one of them. Maybe this is the new outlet.
I think it could be. I think it could be. But a lot of my friends who make wine, some of the most prestigious wineries, they're kind of complaining. A lot of the people who are bringing in some of this wine, you know.
Right. Well, look at this.
They're not-
It's a crazy industry. There's lots of angles.
Lots of angles, but I don't think they got a way to sell it just yet.
They don't.
Or they got their foot in too many, you know. So that's why we're just laser focused. We have our brand. I can say it's the best wine coming out of Armenia right now.
Yeah,
And I think that we created this open container concept
that was great.
and somewhere for people to come and to taste it right there.
Yeah,
You know, like
It's incredible.
like a winery,
Yeah.
like a little mini winery.
yeah.
And we ship too.
We're already on an hour, which is the limit because this will air in Atlanta.
Okay.
So
That's
it runs on a radio show in Atlanta.
We have a couple locations over there
Yeah,
from
that's what you're saying.
Brookfield Properties.
So we could talk again next time because how often do you visit your brother?
Like at least once a year.
Okay, so
Yeah.
next time you're out, we'll do it again.
Yeah.
A fascinating conversation, fascinating idea, refreshing and inspiring idea. We don't see new ideas. I've had a lot of companies come in trying to do canned wines, ready to drink cocktails, all these things are going on, but they're all trendy things happening. And the canned wine conversation, we'll save it for the next time because I have my opinion of it. But I did have on the show recently, for the listeners, just came out, Gavin Sachs, who is the Cornell professor whose job it is to create a food-grade lining for cans that will last 24 months. That's his molecular biology job. And it's really fascinating stuff. But we'll save it for the next time. Thanks for coming in and having a chat. So glad you're in LA and had a chance to do this.
My pleasure.
And we'll
This was
continue
great.
to talk. I'll get you the name from the champagne vendor
Okay.
and whoever else in the world you want to get wine from because
I'm sure you got a
we've
Rolodex
been
of that,
doing it
man.
a long time.
And I would love to meet up with you one day outside the country. You know, I'm an avid traveler. You know,
Yeah, we're
going into Europe.
Well, we're doing Monaco in May for the race, and I'll be probably circulating northern Italy, northwest Italy, and Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne.
I'll meet you there,
So
man.
we'll figure that out.
Yeah. If you want to come to, Armenia, you want to,
We'll be in Armenia too. I've got plans for that.
just come by, bro. We'll roll out the red carpet.
Well, you don't have to do
we'll have
that,
a
but I
great time.
appreciate,
Yeah,
appreciate that.
And I'm an avid traveler as well. So again, I'm always trying to source the best quality stuff.
Great.
And I love getting the new ideas and expanding my
Well, we
my mind.
need new ideas in this industry, and you have it. So cheers. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thanks, brother.
Thank you for listening to Wine Talks with Paul Khachatryan. Don't forget to subscribe because there's more great interviews on their way. Folks, have a great time out there in the wine world. Cheers.